All right, let's jump into some title stuff. Who here feels really comfortable with what it is title does? Looking for hands going up. I see no hands going. Oh, I see Casey. Casey's pretty comfortable. Okay. Good. Well, 1 out of 17 people are comfortable with title. So this is a good conversation to have, I believe. Oh, Sparkle's good with title as well. I'm glad we've got Ryan on because he's going to help us explain some things. But before I get to that, I want to ask us a few questions. When do you guys think it's important to start bringing title into a transaction?
Very beginning. Right at list. Right at
As soon as you're in contract.
Okay. What other answers are there?
Right before you go into contract.
Okay. What other answers?
matters
are
which
out there?
side you're on, if you're on the buy or the sell side. If you're on the sell side, you need to have it as your before you go into before you actually put it on MLS. You want to have all those things lined up.
Yeah, so I all these answers are correct. You're going to get title involved at some point. The earlier, the better. And Ryan's going to explain a little bit why later. But if you have a listing coming up, today is when you can get title involved. It's going to help them and it's going to help you. When I say the term leverage, what comes to mind? What do you think I mean when I say leverage in real estate or in work in general?
It assists
Like
you in
cost
some way,
versus
helps you.
So Melody said it assists you in some way or helps you. Yes, you're 100% right. Brian, what did you say?
So basically like cost versus benefit. For very little, you can get a lot more benefit from them for very little on your end.
Yeah, exactly. You're both 100% right. Leverage to me means giving somebody else something that I don't necessarily want to do because they're better at it and they're going to make me look better, probably. And so title company can be that for us. Most title companies, not all, I'm not going to speak for everyone. I'm going to speak with my firsthand knowledge of what Ryan does. They will help us with leverage. Leverage can come in the form of hand sanitizer, wipes, documents and forms for open houses, literally creating flyers for you to use if you're going to go door knock, giving you information that you might need to know about a local area or a neighborhood, giving you even down to like phone numbers and addresses, contact names. Like we've talked about prospecting and trying to find listings. Title companies can assist us with finding this information that's going to be vital in driving your productivity. So when you find a good title contact, and Ryan's going to hate me for saying this, but I'm going to say it. Okay. Most title companies perform the same work. Okay. There are different levels of customer service that you're going to receive though. So once you find one that you're comfortable with, use them and see how they can help you in your business. Okay. From a coaching standpoint, before we get too involved in title at a high level, I like to have the conversation about title during a listing appointment. We use title companies more on the listing side than on the buying side, right? Because in Columbus or in Central Ohio in general, the majority of the time, the buyer dictates who the title company is going to be. Or sorry, the seller dictates who. Did I say that right? Did I mess that up? The seller dictates who the title company is. Okay, so when you're listing a home, you have a little bit more authority over who the title company is going to be. I like to, every single time I go to a listing appointment, give a high-level overview of the title company process and some of the fees they're going to charge so that there's no excuses come closing. There's no surprises from the seller side. They are all aware when they close with me that there will be some fees that they're going to be paying. Another tool that I utilize, I'm going to share my screen. Ryan's going to be so happy. Ryan's been trying to get me to use his net to seller for a long time. For some reason, I was using a competitor's net to seller for a long time, but Ryan can give us all the website name and everything to get onto. But this is an example of a net to seller. You've heard me reference this before, and this was actually brought up, I believe, last week. A net to seller sheet should be given to every single person who is going to be selling their home prior to them listing or going active. The reason being, you as a great realtor are creating an open book. You're being completely transparent as to what the fees are going to look like come closing and to what they can expect to ultimately net at the end of the day. What do I mean by net? I just mean how much money is going to go in their pockets after things close. So I'm giving you a high level overview. This is just an example. Okay. So this will be prepared by me, prepared for, and I can customize this. You put in an address. The cool thing with this and Ryan's program here is once you start to type in the address, it'll automatically populate. So you don't need to know the zip code necessarily. Then you will have already done your due diligence, hopefully, when creating a net to seller sheet. And when I say due diligence, I mean essentially getting a pretty accurate idea of what the home is going to sell for. That's the information you're going to plug into sale price right here. Some of this information doesn't necessarily matter in my eyes because it's more on the buyer side. But so let's say this person's going to sell their home for $500,000. That's what I'm speculating it'll sell for. Well, let's say that they own the house free and clear, meaning they don't have any mortgage payment. They paid cash for it 20 years ago and have owned it free and clear of any liens. Their balance remaining would be zero. They don't have any loan remaining to pay. It automatically populates their property taxes, which is great. Over here at the bottom line is after all is said and done with title fees, taxes, and commissions, title policies, etc., they can expect to net this amount right here. Now, let's adjust this. Let's say that they owe $200,000 remaining. Boom. That number automatically populates over here. Once you're done plugging in all this information, you can actually send this in an email to yourself. I always like to send it to myself prior to sending it directly to the client, so that I can see what's going to show up on their end. And then you'll send it over to them once you feel comfortable about things. Ryan, if you don't mind speaking to this, is there a way to put a couple other price points on our net to seller sheet? So for instance, if we're trying to convince a seller to do some improvements to their house, and if they were to do those improvements, they might net $15,000 more.
Yeah.
So I might say sales price one would be $500,000, but if you did these improvements, you could make $515,000. Is there a way to do that on here? Maybe I'm not seeing it.
So actually, if you would be on the dashboard page, Josh, there is a net to seller that is the multiple offers option. Okay. So you can use that not only if you're doing a preliminary type of net sheet to show them, you know, if we did these improvements, we could get an extra $10,000, $15,000. You can also use that to present multiple offers to your clients with, and it kind of simplifies it. It shows them essentially the differences in the offers and what they're going to net. So let's say you have a situation where you have, you know, a $300,000 cash offer and then a $310,000 offer that they're willing to, you know, they want $1,000 for closing costs or whatever the differences are, to where you can present that to them. So yeah, you can do that on the multiple offers tab.
Cool. Jumping back into this, I normally, when I'm doing a net to seller sheet, I normally include worst case scenario items. I would rather under promise and over deliver every day of the week. And what that means is I'm preparing them for the worst in case something happens. So I always add in a $500 estimated home warranty. I normally add in $1,000 for repairs. So let's say it does go to remedy requests and they have $1,000 in fixes. If the home is really old and really downtrodden, then you might add more to those things. Always, always under promise and over deliver. But this is just a really good snapshot. And at the end of the day, isn't this what most sellers really care about? You can talk about what you're going to do to sell their house until you're blue in the face and how you're special and unique. At the end of the day, most people just want to know, how much am I going to make? So this is a great tool, and our brokerages are starting to require these to be done so that the seller can't come back and say, hey, you never told me that you'd be charging a commission, right? Even though it's in the agreement, even though I saw it on the net to seller sheet, it covers our butts a little bit. So that is a net to seller sheet. Do we have any questions on net to seller sheets?
I have a comment with one thing I had a client recently do was Zillow offers a version of this, and they put in some really astronomical numbers as far as like estimated repairs or cleaning and prep or things like that, which made it way different than what I did through a title company. So if you have a client do that, it's better to do your own through the title company and show them like, no, Zillow's numbers are not accurate. You're not going to be doing $5,000 in repairs or spending $1,000 cleaning or things like that they kind of automatically plug in, which messes with people's minds.
1000% correct. You might be asking yourselves, well, how do you find out how much they owe? All I do is ask. All I do is ask them. I'm not going to any certain website to look at the records and stuff. I just ask them, hey, approximately how much do you owe on your house? And I always do that at the initial seller consultation, the listing appointment, so to speak. As I'm walking around the house, I'm taking notes on my phone or on my clipboard, whatever's convenient for you. And I ask them during that time, how much do you owe? Because I'm going to be sending you a net to seller sheet. If you
Okay,
are
that net to
not,
seller sheet, that's something you show during the consultation,
no.
before or after?
During my initial listing presentation, it's all about fact finding and information gathering. I normally then go home after I've been through the home, because Jason, the answer to that is no, because I don't know how much their house will sell for right at that initial listing appointment, because I haven't been through their house yet. So I always take that information home and I tell them this at the listing appointment. Hey, I can talk about a range of prices that your house will sell for, but until I go home and actually sit down with pencil and paper and calculate, I can just give you a range of what things have historically sold for in this area. Once I go home, I'm going to calculate a price point that I think this will sell at if we were to sell in the next, reasonable amount of time frame. And I'm going to create this net to seller sheet. So this happens the night of typically my listing appointment.
And there is a buyer's expense sheet there too. Is that correct?
Yes, I think I saw that, right?
There is, I always recommend with the buyer expense stuff, because those are rough estimates on those things. That's where I think you have a good lender partner and you work with them.
Okay.
When it comes to buyer's expense. If you're looking for some type of title quote on the buyer's fees, those are pretty, those are easy to kind of send over in a quote, maybe like the few fees that the buyer is going to pay on the closing side. But I would always recommend working with your lender partner if you're working with buyers.
Okay. Yeah, I was just thinking on like an initial conversation or on like I do a buyer's workshop.
Melody, what I always tell people in the buyer's shoes is I normally tell them expect to pay 1.5% to 3% of the total purchase price. That's the typical range that your closing costs will come under. So they are prepared then. I've covered with them. There's no surprises then. 1.5% to 3%. And depending on which lender you use, that's why I push Keller Mortgage, because they can save them a pretty substantial chunk off of that closing cost. So it might be closer to 1.5% instead of the 3%. but that's a pretty good rule of thumb.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Well, we're going to get into some Q&A here with Ryan. So I'm going to be asking a few questions, and then I'm going to open it up at the end for you guys to ask him some questions. So these are all hopefully high level. And when we need you to get into the weeds, Ryan, if you don't mind, we'd love that. Thanks for making some time for us. We really appreciate it, by the way.
Yeah, I was happy to jump on early and kind of hear what you guys were talking about. You know, the more I learn about what you guys are doing, the better we can always help you out. So I really enjoyed the talk about leveraging your title company, and we'll probably talk about this a little further on. And getting in touch with them early in the process is huge, because the earlier we know, the more we can provide help to you, whether you have a new listing or something coming up. So
Yeah.
great.
I
Great.
should also-
meeting, Josh.
I should also say, I do not, I have no affiliation with First American Title. This is just a relationship that I've got with somebody that I trust. And I am not saying you only should use First American. There are other great ones out there. This is just one that I use. So first question, explain at a high level what title does.
All right, so let's go high level title. Well, first we have the title part, right? So we're issuing, we're performing the search, we're issuing a title commitment and a title policy that in Central Ohio, the seller is paying for, and they are providing to the buyers. But when we say title, sometimes we skip the other part of what we do and what all the local companies do. We are not only title insurance, we're issuing that policy, we're also escrow and settlement services. That's another big part of what we do beyond just issuing the title policy. We're that neutral third party that's, collecting, getting the funds, getting the docs, getting everything ready for your transaction to close. So those, that's the broadest, not diving into anything description that I can give. Oh, sorry, I just lost all my lights in here. I haven't moved. Can everybody see me still?
Yeah.
Good.
Okay. When you say title, what's the word title mean in real estate?
So, right, title is, I think probably until you go to buy a house for the first time or you get into real estate, you don't know what a real estate title company is. Your first thought is like the title to your car, right? So title, a title company, when we do our search and we provide title, we're essentially providing you with a history of the ownership on this property and telling you that this property that you are buying is free and clear, and that it is going to be that it's essentially there's no type of encumbrances or anything that's going to prevent you from owning this property or could kind of get in your way on that. So it's just gives you that clear, you are the person that owns this property.
Cool. Thanks for clearing that up. Next question. When should a title company be incorporated into a transaction? When? So let's use a real life example. Let's say I have a listing appointment tonight. When should I get title involved?
I would say, yeah, as soon as, if you have a listing appointment tonight, I would say as soon as you've obviously gotten the commitment and they say, hey, Josh, we're going to go with you, you can start getting title involved right away. From a standpoint of the title work itself and doing the search and everything on the property, a lot of times the sooner that we can get started on that, the better, especially if there could maybe be some issues with the chain of title that might come up. Maybe this property has some tax liens on it or something else, or an easement or some other issues that we want to get cleared up. The sooner the better helps us kind of with that timeline. Now, most of the time, we're not going to run into any of those major issues that might slow down the process. So a lot of times, once you're in contract, we can kind of get started on the title work. But as you said before, Josh, title companies, not only are we just providing the title and settlement services, which we all do, and just like real estate agents, right? Everybody helps people buy and sell houses. Some people are better at it than others, but in general, we're doing the same thing. We're providing title and settlement services, but we also provide other things like helping doing your, stuff for an open house or creating some listing flyers and things of that nature. So if you tell me on Monday, hey, Ryan, I'm going to have a new listing coming up and we're going to go live on Thursday, you think you could help me out with some, marketing for it? I'll say, absolutely, jump on board. But I'll have, if you reach out to your title rep on Thursday night saying, do you think I could get flyers in the morning? Well, it makes it tough to do. I can still try to get that done to help you out, but it's just, I can't provide you with as much service and as much help without. So as soon as possible, Josh.
Great. And just to give an example, so what he's talking about, like finding issues when doing a title search throughout the course of the transaction, one of the steps is to get title commitment. And sometimes when we receive the title commitment back, the title company will let us know, hey, there is the property is built over the build line, or there's some sort of encumbrance on the property. Well, the sooner we know that, the better, obviously, because we'd hate to get to the closing table or a day before and this comes up. I was a part of a transaction my first year, and it scared the crap out of me because the home was built like a foot over the build line. I'm like, is this going to close? At the end of the day, it was a really minor issue that didn't really impact things. But because I wasn't aware ahead of time, it was literally at the 11th hour. It frustrated all parties involved, and it was a big wrinkle. So had we gotten them involved sooner, we might have been better off. Cool. Okay, next question. What sort of fees should I tell my buyers and sellers to anticipate from a title perspective?
Yeah, so the title company, and I sent this over to you, but I can read it off too as well, Josh. So the fees you're going to experience, we'll just kind of go the ballpark, general fees that you're going to see with most title companies. There's obviously the owner's policy, which is the big one. That's going to be the biggest fee that you're going to see per the Columbus, the local contract, I believe is it in section 9, Josh, where it says the seller will provide the buyer with the most up-to-date title policy.
Yeah, I haven't memorized all 100 sections.
Yeah,
but,
I think it's section 9. So it says that you'll provide the buyer with that owner's policy. And so the big question with the owner's policy is, okay, it's this big expensive policy. What does it do? Why is it so expensive? So the one thing to know with that is it is a one-time fee. And an easy way to explain it to your sellers is essentially it's a one-time fee that protects essentially anything that has happened in the past on the property that might come up and interfere with the buyer's ownership. So per our contract, when you're providing that to the buyer, not only are we providing them a title commitment to issue the title policy, and that we're doing a search, and we're also going to ensure that search and say that this property has a clean chain of title. We are going to ensure this property to you as the new owner. And if anything does what happened to come up along the way, you're covered. I would say probably the most common stuff. There's always the crazy stories of, we had unpaid work on a mechanics lien, but really the title issues that we see come up most now, it's like with everything else kind of today in this world, it's usually some type of forgery or some type of, they forged a document, whether they forged a deed, something was human error, filed wrong, things like that. So that's what the title policy is covering. Again, that's your big expense. Also, that title policy in Ohio, at least, and in most of the country, it is a regulated fee. So that title policy amount is going to be the same across the board with whatever company you're working with. So whether you're closing a deal with First American, Chicago Title, Stewart Title, someone else out there, that title policy amount is always going to be the same. The big thing, the only time that policy would change is if there is a previous owner's policy, if they've owned it for less than 10 years. And this is always, agents are always asking, trying to find ways to provide value, and understanding that and knowing that the title company is going to do our due diligence. But a great, easy way to explain it to your clients is if they've owned their home for less than 10 years, to say, hey, if you have your previous settlement statement or your the copy of the actual policy, if you have that and provide it to the title company, we're going to be able to save you traditionally about 20 to 30% on that title policy amount. So, on a
Which is a couple $100 normally, right?
yeah, I mean, in some cases, it really depends too. It depends. That's based off of the original purchase price and stuff. Yeah, you could be saving them anywhere from $200 to a lot of times $500, $600, $700. So that is always a huge question to ask your people, and that you can really kind of show that, hey, I know what I'm doing. I'm here to help you out.
Yeah, and let me stop you there. I want to reemphasize that. So during a listing appointment, you can provide value above and beyond what these other 8,000 Yahoos in the city are doing by saying, hey, I can also save you a couple $100 if you've got this one piece of paper.
Mhm.
Nobody else is going to say that.
Yeah. And I always like to, when you're preparing that net sheet, always prepare it for worst case scenario. Like Josh said, you're going to include that title policy amount in there that's not at that reissue rate, and be able to present it as, hey, I can save you, if you do have this, it's going to save you, $500 or $400, and you could even know what that amount is coming into the appointment. But I always like to present it just the way Josh said, the worst case scenario, because no one's ever been upset when they get more money than they thought they were going to get. The other way around, usually we might have some upset clients. The other title fees. So the rest of the title fees, they're not regulated. I guess they are kind of regulated in the sense, as a title company, we have to charge the same fees to all of our customers. So I can't say, Josh, you're such a great client of ours, I only charge your clients $100 search fee while we charge the rest of our clients $200. So they are not regulated. So there's a sliding scale of what a company might charge on their other closing fees. But they're all in a ballpark range. And the fees that you can expect to see, there's going to be some type of settlement fee or closing fee, which is the fee for doing the closing. There's going to be a search fee that the seller is going to pay. That is the title search, where we're going back through public records and searching for any type of title issues. You're going to have a title insurance binder or commitment that, again, that's in the contract that you'll be providing that to the buyer. That's essentially the commitment to issue the title policy. So we do the search, and then we'll give you a title commitment that says First American is essentially issuing this commitment to issue the title policy at close. And then other fees that you might see, you're going to see, you might see an overnight fee for some documents. Some companies might charge a wire fee. We don't charge a wire fee at First American. Those are your common fees that you're going to see as the seller. Now, on the buy side, the fees you're going to see are typically a closing fee to do the actual closing. There's going to be some recording fees that the title company is going to have to record the documents with the county. And then you're going to see, especially if you're purchasing the home with a lender, with a mortgage, there are going to be, the lender is going to want to have a policy. And then the lender's also going to have what's known as endorsements. So I guess let's break down the lender's policy. Why do we have a lender's policy and a homeowner's policy? Well, the homeowner's policy is covering you as the owner. The lender, they also want to protect their interests if they're lending you, hundreds of thousands of dollars. So they're going to want to have their coverage too. The lender's policy is only if there is a homeowner's policy. So for your buyers, the seller's providing you with a homeowner's policy. The lender is going to require a lender's policy that the buyer will be paying for. That's $100. And again, that's a regulated fee that is a flat fee. It's $100 for that lender's policy if there's a homeowner's policy being provided. Now, if we would run into a situation where for some reason you're using a different contract, or there's been some type of negotiation and there's no homeowner's policy being issued, the lender would then have a lender's policy that would be more in line with the price of what a homeowner's policy would be, slightly less, but they would have a policy that they would want included with those extra coverages. The other coverages you're going to see are, again, the endorsements. The common ones you're going to see, there's going to be an EPA lien. There's going to be restrictions for encroachments and minerals. There's going to be a mechanics lien deletion. There's going to be survey coverage. So essentially, again, it's the lenders wanting to protect their investment in lending you this money. Those are all regulated as well. So the amounts aren't going to change. And most of the time, those are going to range between $50 and $150 per endorsement. I typically say there's let's say 4 to 5 of those endorsements that most, if not all, lenders are going to require. Some lenders might not require a certain endorsement, some do, but you can expect on your average transaction, I would say between $400 and $600 of endorsements if your buyers are using a lender.
I want to stop you there and say that never at any point has this question ever been asked to me, like, how much am I going to be charged at closing from lenders' endorsements? And yeah, it's still good information to have. I would never go above and beyond and share this breakdown with a buyer or seller. That's just, it's too in the weeds. And it would honestly scare me. It would scare me off if I was going to buy a house. Like, wait, so I'm going to be nickel and dime for every single thing. I'm even going to be charged for postage. Are you serious right now? Yes, you'll be charged for postage. Don't tell your clients that. They don't need to know this stuff. Just say 1.5 to 3% if you're on the buy side. And on the sell side, here's your net to seller. Here's what you can expect. That's all.
And I would say,
just for our knowledge here.
And I would say these fees, and I think we're going to talk about it later, kind of talking about when your clients are interacting with the title company. So once we get close to the closing, the title company is going to be sending out a copy of the settlement statement to your seller clients and your buyer clients. As if I was representing a buyer or a seller, once I get that quote sent out, we typically, the title company is going to send it to you first as the agent to review and make sure that there's nothing on there missing, right? There's not an addendum that you had forgot to send over, or that we hadn't, didn't get on the settlement statement, because the last thing you want to show your client is the numbers here and there's something missing or something that needs to be changed. So we send that over. I always recommend to review the settlement statement with your client before closing. Just say, hey, here's a copy of the settlement statement from the title company. Take a look at it. If you have any questions about anything on there, get in touch with me and we'll talk about it. Because I've seen sometimes, Josh, when people get in there, they kind of get in shock of like, I wasn't expecting any of this until the table, because their agent hasn't prepared them for some of those right before the closing.
Yeah. And that's what we'll probably end with here. Real quickly, I want to give you a chance to give your company a plug. Give me First American in 2 minutes. Why use you guys? What tools do you provide?
So, I guess First American in 2 minutes. So we are a Fortune 500 company. We've been around for 135 years. So we're reliable. And that's kind of what you want to have in a title partner. We're not going to go anywhere anytime soon. We are the underwriter. So the title policy that you're getting, we're the ones issuing that. What else we can do for you? We have the net sheet calculator that Josh showed. We can help you with your brochures, your marketing, your open house. We can help you with education. We teach continuing education classes. We can help you do geofarming. We can help you. We can do a lot to help you kind of build your business and to leverage us, as Josh was saying earlier, as a resource to kind of be on your side to do some of those things that you don't want to be doing. You need to be out there having conversations with new real estate contacts, right, Josh?
Yep. You guys have an app, right? You've tried to sell me on this app. Tell me about the app.
So we have our cost calculator, our app. We have My First AM, which is our farming tool that is actually going to be rebranded here soon. So we're actually going to have one app for everything. So you can go to First American and say, hey, I need to do my net sheet. I want to sign up for your next class. I want to check on the status of my transaction through our secure portal. You'll be able to do all that in one spot. So that's kind of coming, but yeah, we do have some standalone apps right now with My First AM and Cost First.
Good deal.
So, yeah.
All right, cool. 3 more minutes and then we're going to open it up for some questions. We've already got 1 or 2. First, this question is, what should I expect at closing for myself and my clients? So just at a very high level, you got 3 minutes.
I'm sorry, what?
What
Say that
should
one more
I
time.
expect as an agent at closing? Like, what does closing look like? Because some of our folks on the call has not had a closing, or maybe they've only had 1 or 2. And so we want to make sure that we're aware. As an agent, what should I expect? And then as a client, what should my clients expect at closing?
Yeah, what you should expect at closing. So, about a week before the title company is going to get you the final numbers, the settlement statement.
Ha! It's more like a day before at this rate. Lately, it's been like a day.
Well, let's put it this
Everybody.
way. Your seller numbers you can get a week before. Buyer side, we might be waiting for the lenders last minute. So you'll get those when we get them over. So you're going to get those numbers. You're going to show up that day at the title company. And I know it is sort of a big, scary thing, especially on the buy side if you've never bought a house before. You're staring at 200 sheets of paper and you have to sign all of these things. And there's a lot of big terms and words, and there's a lot of money going on. That's a scary thing to do. I always say, always like to recommend, hey, the documents that we're signing today, they're documents that are used all across the country and real estate transactions all day, every day. There's nothing in here that's really, there's nothing to be scared about. These are standard documents. You'll run into clients and I would say this is a good heads up. If you have a client that you feel might be the person who's I want to read every line of every document, reach out to the title company before closing and say, hey, my client's going to be a reader. Can we get these documents to him in advance? We'll be happy to send them over in advance so your client can go through there, pick out the questions that he's going to have. So when that time comes to get to the closing table, we can get through the documents in a pretty timely fashion. I know you guys as agents would probably prefer not to be in a closing for 2 and 2.5 hours because your client wants to read every word of every document. So really kind of assessing what your client, kind of where they're at. That's always good to do before.
Cool. Good stuff. Okay, questions from the audience here. I've got a question from Dana. She asks, what's the role of the title company of a property that is in probate?
Who's the role of title company? Property is in probate. Shoot, you know what? I would have to talk to the attorneys on that one. I don't handle any type of probate stuff directly. That's a good question, Dana. I will, Josh, I'll talk to Larry Press, and I'll send that out. You can share with everybody.
Great. All right, guys, open forum. So what other questions do y'all have? Melody asks, where are you located?
So we are located, I'm actually physically located in Dublin, but we have 5 branches through Central Ohio. So we're in Westerville, Easton, Pickerington, and then we operate all across the country. I think we operate in a direct operation in like 26 states. If you ever have sometimes too, if you have a client who may be wanting to sign somewhere out of state and wants to actually go to a physical office, we can accommodate that as well.
Great. What other questions do we have, guys? We've got a few minutes left.
I got a question, Ryan.
Yeah.
I think this is about the homeowner's policy. So if you buy a property and you know you're going to want to sell it like within a 6-month period or something, is it the homeowner's policy that you can keep open that would save money?
Yeah, so you're buying a property and you're going to have, so when you buy the property, the seller is going to be providing you with that policy.
Mhm.
So that policy is good. That has you covered as the buyer for as long as you own that home. So you don't have to keep it open or anything like that. Policy exists. So then once it would go to when you are selling, you're going to be providing the buyer with a policy, and we'll use the reissue credit because we're assuming, since that search was done within the last 10 years,
Oh, that was part of what you're talking
we're
about.
assuming everything that was done before that was good because that policy was issued. That's why we can reissue it at that credit.
Okay, and what was that percentage that you said it can save? About 20%?
I would say a rough estimate is about 20 to 30%.
Okay.
And it's dependent actually on what the original purchase price was.
Okay, thank you.
Good. What other questions?
Hey, Josh, if anybody doesn't have any other questions, I was going to also say that First American, we're actually, so we do a lot of continuing education classes. We have 2 attorneys here in Central Ohio that teach, and then also other attorneys across the state. On Tuesday, we're doing a class about remote online notarization and online developments. So we do these on Tuesdays a couple of times a month. They're about an hour long. Great way to get just kind of a general idea, kind of like you said earlier, where you have some gaps in title knowledge and everything else. It's a great way to pick up a little knowledge and be able to, again, to kind of be able to provide a little bit more to your clients. The remote online notarization is a brand kind of new thing out there. It's come up and COVID's accelerated that. We've run into situations where, again, the agent isn't communicating with the title company. Maybe let's say there's a buyer's agent on this transaction. Their buyers aren't communicating. We're trying 3 days before closing, 2 days before closing. Well, my husband's in California. I thought we could just sign the documents online. We get that. That is a challenge to do. But we can do remote online closings and that stuff. It's not as easy as DocuSign. But again, if you know you have a client who wants something like that, or let's say to COVID, they haven't been going out. That's something that we can offer, especially on the seller side, where they could actually pre-sign all of their closing documents, and they could schedule a remote online notarization appointment with us where they just sign the deed and that's it. So that's a class coming up. I'll shoot you that information. You can share with everybody. But it'd be a great thing to learn, again, about a new technology and a new way that you can provide value to your clients.
Beautiful. That's what we're all about. Hey guys, let's give a virtual online clap to Mr. Ryan. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. I look forward to seeing y'all next week at Family Reunion.